Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first, like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Their rendezvous with an Ophion rebel has Ruhn, Ithan, and Cormac face-to-face with Mordoc. In a desperate attempt to evade detection, they move their gathering to a whiskey bar in Lunathion, where the Hind and Harpy confront Ruhn and Ithan for a card game. Meanwhile, Bryce and Hunt fight for their lives in the Bone Quarter, and it is only when Bryce's life is in jeopardy that Hunt truly unleashes his powers. Tharion leaves his meeting with the River Queen to come to their aid, and the team reassembles at Bryce's apartment to share all that they have learned. But when Hunt is called away to attend Celestina's and Ephriam's engagement party, Sabine confronts Ithan and Bryce, the confrontation of which ends with Ithan's ability to defeat Sabine in question, and his decision to move in with Ruhn and his friends solidified.
The views expressed by the hosts are entirely their own and in no way represent the thoughts or intentions of the original author.
This podcast is a discussion, shared to spark thought and conversation on the characters and themes of this novel.
The interpretations presented in this podcast are just a few of many possibilities. Listeners are encouraged to read along and share their own analysis of the text.
Though the hosts speak mostly within the constraints of this book, series and extended universe spoilers may be discussed with or without warning.
Explicit language, as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death will recur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
If you are enjoying the podcast, check out our Patreon for more exclusive content. You can find us at patreon.com/Book Talk for Book Talk.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy, a podcast where we deep dive into the writing of your favorite novels.
This season, we are exploring Sarah J. Maas's second installment in the Crescent City series.
This is Jac.
And I'm Amy.
This week, we're discussing chapters 30 through 36 in House of Sky and Breath.
This week's question is, seeing as we're halfway through the book, how far have we come from book 1 in preparation for book 3? How are the characters progressing in that particular direction?
Themes we see this week include destiny, karma, and tapping into the truth. We start chapter 30 with Ruhn, Ithan, and Cormac all meeting with Ophion. And I'm going to make an argument that Ruhn is Crescent City, which remind me, did I say something similar about Bryce being Crescent City in book 1, like the city itself?
Potentially, yes. Which makes sense because they're related.
Yeah, so let's pretend that's what I did. But for this one, I'm definitely going to say that there is a direct correlation between Ruhn and Crescent City. Quote, Ruhn had grown up in Crescent City. He knew it had places to avoid, yet it had always felt like home, like his, until today. So Ruhn thinks he knows himself, but he doesn't. Like, he really doesn't know himself. And he's not going to recognize himself in this moment, right? Like, things are changing. He's suddenly a rebel spy, and he's somewhere between wanting to help rebel spies, not really fully committing to rebel spies, and he's changing. He's starting to understand that they're going to have to fight against the Asteri. Like, this is a really big moment for Ruhn.
I completely agree, and I kind of saw something similar, which he's seeing the departure from normal, not only reflected within himself, but in the city around him.
Yeah.
And the city around him is a reflection of himself. And we're going to see reminders of that departure pretty frequently throughout the chapter.
I'm like playing more into this, like the city's being invaded,
Mm-hmm.
so like like maybe some of his own emotions. I mean, like they're all kind of being invaded emotionally, but that all, my mind went dark where I was like, the city blew up, right? Last
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
book, and he got burn marks from his dad. That's just not fun.
Mm.
Yeah, okay, that's dark. Let's go on. So Ethan's worried about the Hind, while Ruhn is worried about, like I said, his life choices of being part of the rebels. Quote, "You think the Hind's on to us?" That's Ithan. And then Ruhn thinks us. Fuck. That word freaked him out when it came to consorting with rebels. And, like I said, I don't think I really appreciated just how big of a moment this is for Ruhn. Like everything is really shifting. And it makes sense that this is a big moment because we're going to meet Lydia in a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there are so many clues about Ruhn and Lydia, like there's almost like the concept of us freaks them out,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which it will freak him out later.
It will freak him out. This, for whatever, reminds me of a Pinterest quote I saw recently, which is,
Okay.
you have to let your old self fall apart and die in order to make way for your new life. So like
Mm,
your old life has to fall apart and die, sorry, not you, your life, in order to make way for the new. And I think that's really relevant to Ruhn here, right?
mhm.
There's this infiltration into the city, and Ruhn is witnessing the death of his old self.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, there's this moment where Cormac is interacting with a rebel disguised as a quote unquote begging vagrant. It's metaphor for Ruhn. Ruhn is that begging vagrant. He has fallen very low from his status as royal. And
Mm,
he's gotten himself into this mess and he's aware of that, but he's just now starting to deal with that mentally. And he's not actually mentally prepared for it, which is going to trickle down into his and Lydia's relationship as well in the long
mhm,
run.
mhm.
But just this idea, and we're going to see a little bit of it elsewhere as well. Ruhn has fallen from grace,
Yeah.
and his old understandings of the world are going to be challenged so that this
Mhm.
new life that he's stepping into can be accepted fully.
Well, someone came with their big guns today.
Pew, pew, pew.
That was a good one.
Thanks.
We get a glimpse of the Dreadwolves, and I always kind of have like a feeling about I don't know how I feel about the name the Dreadwolves. Like, is it
Mm.
too on the nose? I don't know. Like, it's both like good, but also like you might as well call them like we get a glimpse of the big bad scary wolves, like
Yeah,
the
the terror
Dreadwolves. The
wolves.
terror wolves. Yeah. Anyway, quote, cold-eyed and harsh-faced above the pristine gray uniforms, a black and white patch of wolf skulls and crossbones adorned that uniform's left arm. The 7 gold stars of the Asteri shone on a red patch above their hearts, and on their starched high collars, silver darts. So each dart that they have is how many rebel spies that they've hunted down, right?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
immediately I was like, well, this uniform looks exactly like a Nazi uniform,
Yeah.
minus the skull, like, but like it's very similar. And you have the pristine uniforms, the clean, right? It's all like very shiny, but then you have the stark red against that, which is
Mm-hmm.
like supposed to kind of, I feel like, be a little messy, a little bloody almost, because the seven gold stars are over a red patch over their heart. So it's like the 7 gold stars are the Asteri over a red patch of their heart. It's like, talk about the
Mm.
metaphor of like, we own you, we're in
Yeah.
your heart, that is who you belong to.
Right. Right. I think that's such a great point. I also saw something very cold and aloof about these uniforms,
Mhm.
almost clinical. And it did also make me think of portrayal of Nazis in media
Yeah.
and the attitude of like, I have this pristine uniform, and if you scuff my boot or get a little bit of mud on me,
Yeah.
I'm going to beat you. I'm going to kill you.
I hate to say
Um,
this, but that is a trope I do like. Like, in like The Bad Boy. Like, I feel like that's a
wait,
very
wait, wait, pause, pause, pause. I think we need to separate Nazi from.
Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren is who I was imagining. Yes, no, not trope. Okay. I really hope people understand. No, we do not trope Nazis.
No.
Now, The Bad Boy.
I like the move to the other side of the mic.
However, the bad boy.
The bad boy with the clean uniform.
Yeah, I feel, who have I seen this done before? Maybe it was a K-drama. I want to say it was like a K-drama. Maybe it was like Boys Before Flowers.
I have no idea.
Anyway, continue. I dug myself into one. I do not support Nazis. Continue.
Thank you. Oh no, it's
Well, damn it. I just dug my hole and I will continue. Ruhn tries to put on a brave face, right? Because he's the city. He's got to be a brave boy. Ithan says that the city has gone quiet, and Ruhn tells Ithan to not be paranoid about their danger, though he thought the same. So even though Ruhn's trying to put on a brave face, like, he's still panicking, which, again, it's good to have a sense of danger, right? But it is hilarious when you have Bryce, who's like currently about to be battling, this dog demon and stuff, and she was like, what if I throw myself into lightning? Anyway, we'll get to that. The contrast is hilarious. The threat of the city is what makes Ruhn put on that brave face, though, because it's when Ithan is worried about, like, oh my god, I can't believe they come into this city, and Ruhn's like, no, it's fine. So it makes sense. Like, Ruhn is the protector of that city for many reasons. Like, he's part of the Ox, so he has that history of protecting the city. Ithan says no one will stand for the Dreadwolves to be in this city. And then Cormac responds, quote, you'd be surprised what people will stomach when they find their families threatened. They too thought no one would tolerate it, that someone would do something. Only when it was too late did they realize that they should have done something.
So Jack is about to go into a deep dive with this quote, but I just wanted to say this has really strong fear-mongering themes. It is very World War II, and the reason why these tactics work because it's on a psychological level. I also feel like this moment foreshadows both Ruhn and Ithan's paths forward. We're going to see Ruhn in Sky and Breath take that step, try to be that person that no one else is willing to be, and Ithan's going to kind of do the same in Flame and Shadow, just we don't like it as much. Like, he's the one who stays behind.
No, I know. I'm just
you don't like it.
No, I like to pick and choose the parts that I and you're right, but okay. So, like Amy and I have been saying, there's a lot of World War II imagery here, and this is aggressively World War II imagery. So I'm going to bring in Martin Niemöller. I am so sorry if I did not pronounce that correctly, but Martin was a German Lutheran pastor during Nazi Germany. He was anti-communist and initially supported Hitler because that was like, Hitler doesn't just start off saying, hey, we hate Jewish people. Like, it started off very much like an ideology of politics that then grew into something absolutely horrible. So Hitler started with an anti-communist stance, which then this Pastor Martin was like, yeah, bro, I'm on board with that. And then historians believe, though, that he definitely had some anti-Semitic views, and he did agree with initially some of the positions on the quote unquote Jewish question. Again, this is some of the rhetoric and things that were happening at that time. Now, as Hitler rose to power and insisted on the supremacy of state over religion, that's when Martin was like, well, now I don't like this. Like, wait a minute. Now you're not supposed to be pointing that finger towards me. And then he spoke out against Hitler on that. But again, at this point, it's gone too far. So what happens? He organizes this confessional church, a Protestant group that started to oppose the Nazification of German Protestant churches. And then that is when Martin was sent to a concentration camp. If anyone was surprised, then you haven't heard of Hitler. Not surprising at all there. So he gets sent to a concentration camp, and there he reflects later that everything that he viewed on this world and this life changed him. He was there for about 7 years. And after the war, he then helped instigate the Stuttgart Declaration of Guilt, which is basically a declaration by the Protestant church in Germany confessing to the guilt and their inadequacies to help during that time. And afterwards, he became a really anti-war activist, and he did a lot of he talked about like how his sentiments changed afterwards. Like, things happen after 7 years in a concentration camp. Where I gotta say, like, yeah, at least it went that like good. Like, I'm happy that it went that direction and not more hatred. Like
Right. Where he learned from his past mistakes.
exactly after the war and everything. He writes this very famous poem. I'll read it to you. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. And I feel like this is exactly what Cormac is saying. There's a lot of similar sentiments. There's a lot of things that he's saying here where it's like, you think people are going to say something. You think that no, Ethan's standing there saying like, no one's going to stand for the Dreadwolves. Well, if your family is under threat, yeah, they're going to be real quiet because they're not coming for you right now. So when is that line? When do people suddenly start caring? Is when it starts coming after you, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like what Cormac is saying is like, we can't afford to wait for when they're coming to you. You have to step up and be there. Okay, now my own personal thing. So I was like the first time I heard about this poem was a variation on One Tree Hill. And there was like NOFX, which is a band. They kind of took the concept of it, and there's been so many variations of this poem, but I shall recite to you what I read or what I heard in One Tree Hill, and I was like, this rocked me, mind you, like this rocked me. First, so they put away the dealers, keep our kids safe and off the streets. Then they put away the prostitutes, keep married men cloistered at home. Then they shoot away the bums. Then they beat and bash the queers, turn away the asylum seekers, fed us suspicion and fears. We did not raise our voices. We didn't make a fuss. It's funny, there was no one left to notice when they came for us. And like 15-year-old me was just like, what? What? One Tree Hill was ahead of its time. I swear.
It really was.
Yeah.
There's a reason why so many people loved it because it was just
Did you
very
watch One Tree
powerful.
Hill?
I watched the first couple seasons.
How come we never talked about this? Like Peyton was like, people hated Peyton, but she was so ahead of her time.
Oh, I loved Peyton.
Yeah.
She spoke to us as old souls, I think.
It's true. Like when she said that, I was like, oh my God, Peyton. Yeah. So it felt like it was a very significant moment when I read this and I was like, oh my God, Cormac, One Tree Hill, Peyton, it all comes together.
I do feel like though we're focused on Ruhn and Ithan in this moment with Cormac, these poems also do have a lot of relevance to Bryce. She's not necessarily on board yet, but that could essentially be her anthem in Flame and Shadow.
It's true. It's funny because I think that if you want to get to Bryce, positioning other people and being concerned for other people is the way to do it.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of initial conversations just kind of like reflecting to the first half of the book because we're kind of like in the halfway point. And, I think some of the initial conversations is Bryce, you should get stronger. Bryce, you shouldn't settle for things. Bryce, you should want your life to change. And that's not what does it for her. What does it for her is a meal and then later on the world.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Like this point, like I feel like Bryce is me. No, I feel like Bryce would really been moved by One Tree Hill also.
I think so. That's exactly. Peyton would have been her favorite character.
Did you hear they're kind of coming? I think they're coming back with it.
They're doing a reboot.
Yeah. Some of the original characters too.
That's very exciting.
I'm so excited. That's how Fall Out Boy really made a splash into the scene was with One Tree Hill.
Yeah, that's true.
Fun facts for our youth listeners.
The youth who listen.
Youth demographic. So Ithan makes a note again that the Dreadwolves are different. Quote, we are wolves, Ithan challenged. The Dreadwolves, they're demons in wolf fur. Wolves in name only. And first off, like that's a lot of judgment. Like you don't know them, Ithan. You don't know their story. Like they could be trying to not be a wolf demon. But it's also interesting though that Lydia is in charge of them because who's in charge of wolves? Aluna. I'm
going to make an argument that Aelin is Luna. And I'm going to make it a couple times in this episode. But for now, you point out Luna has her wolves. We've seen it in descriptions of statues of her.
Wait, hold on. My brain caught up to your words.
I was waiting for a reaction. I was like, she's so chill. Has she thought of this herself? Why has she never said it?
No. Okay, wait. All right, so you think Aelin might be Luna?
Be Luna.
Wow. Okay, sorry. Continue. That slow moving on my brain's part. That's on me. Continue.
That's okay. That's
You're a
okay.
genius.
I will save that argument for later.
Damn it, I was ready.
I need to wait for the right moments.
It's fair.
But this is just
You're setting
one.
us up.
I'm setting you up, but this is one moment where I draw the comparison of Luna and her wolves is equivalent to Aelin and all the shifters who gathered around her in Throne of Glass.
Mm-hmm.
It is ironic that a deer shifter is the leader of the Dread Wolves, right?
Yeah.
On one hand, it's supposed to show how ruthless Lydia is. She, of a docile nature, is so ruthless she leads the Dreadwolves, who lack humanity, which we'll get into a little bit later. In fact, though, the deer leading the Dreadwolves should be assigned to us that, like, oh, this is not actually her true nature.
Yeah, it is. It's such a aggressive thing to describe, right? Like this fawn, this deer leading scary demon wolves, and Esham doesn't make it that jarring or without a reason, because it's almost like initially, like, I really didn't take it seriously. Like I didn't find the Hind to be as scary as she was made to be, because I was like, just a little deer riding around. Maybe it's also, wait, I'm not doing my job. This could be a metaphor for feminism, women being in charge of men and us dismissing them. I'm the problem.
I'm
the problem.
You're an anti-feminist in feminist clothing. Oh, I'm sorry. that was mean and uncalled for.
First off, you need to not apologize to me. You need to apologize to the raccoons on my t-shirt. How dare you? But you're also not wrong. I am the problem. I failed us all.
I mean, but that just speaks to ingrained misogyny in our culture that we grow up with, that becomes part of us, that we have to purge.
Yeah. The Hind is an animal that's so docile that we would automatically dismiss it as quote unquote the hyper feminine, and then she's bossing around these male wolves. Wow. I suck. Okay.
You don't suck. You've come to awareness. You're an enlightened being now.
Wow. I feel it. Take a quick sip. Cormac explains why the Asteri are doing what they do, right? Because there's a lot of like, why are the Dreadwolves here? Why is it Lydia here? And what's the point of all of this? And Cormac says, quote, "We believe we are free. We are powerful. We are near immortals. But when it comes down to it, we're all the Asteri's slaves." "Then why the fuck are you trying to bring this shit here?" Ithan demanded. "Because it has to end at some point," Ruhn murmured. He shuddered inwardly. Cormac opened his mouth, surprise lighting his face. Like, he got it. It was it was like he passed the test. Cormac was like, wow, someone put their big brain on. And I mean, and that's the thing. Like, we find out in book 3 that the Asteri, back in Prythian, the High Fae were essentially the slaves to the Asteri, the exact same thing that's happening here. And it's that reality when you really process, like, I'm not actually free. I'm just a higher station of those below me, aka the humans. The exact same thing that happened in Prythian, where the High Fae got to enslave the humans, is the exact same thing that's happening here. Enslavement just looks different. Yes, it's not, quote, like actual slave, but there's an abuse, there is a control, there is a hierarchy that is still here, and they still get to rule over everything. So it was, it was just like, hey, Cormac, hey, Ithan. I haven't even gotten to my notes. So first I write, Ithan, you are dumb. It was already there.
Yeah.
Cormac didn't come in and then be like, hey guys, Asteri, here's the area here.
Right,
It was
right,
already in place, you child. Second, Ruhn is the first, I want to know, in this group, and the group being Bryce, Hunt, Ithan, Tharion, right? Like the first one to kind of make that connection of like, oh shit, the Asteri are the problem. Like, this goes beyond us, and that he gets that they're the ones who need to be stopped.
Yeah, and I actually love this choice, and I think that it makes sense that Ruhn's the first one in the group to come to that conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, even though he does have a place of privilege, he is a royal, he is a prince, he's been a victim of powerful people his entire life.
Yeah.
So even though he has this appearance of privilege, his life has been threatened every day.
Mm-hmm.
He has essentially been made to feel powerless his entire life. Unlike Bryce, who's been able to choose ignorance, and
Yeah.
unlike Hunt, who's chosen to fight back and has had the hope of a better future,
Mm-hmm.
Ruhn has never had either of those options. Like at 4 years old, you can't tell your dad you have a certain power because he would abuse you for it.
Seriously. Yeah.
Like that's that you. And what I love though is you would think, or you might assume, that Ruhn would be the one to lay down and take it because he has his entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Nevertheless, it makes sense that he's able to see that the Asteri are the problem because he's only viewed other people as the problem, really, his entire life. It is admirable then that he's willing to make the effort for change.
Yeah.
Because you would think that someone for 80 years who has chosen to be complacent
Mm-hmm.
would not be willing. But I do think it's Cormac that motivates Ruhn because Cormac is equivalent to Ruhn.
Yeah, he's the prince that Ruhn should be.
Right. And yet Cormac is willing to do something. And I think that does motivate Ruhn because in a lot of ways they are equals.
Mm-hmm.
And that quote that you read, the end part of it, where Ruhn says it has to end at some point,
Mm-hmm.
and Cormac shows surprise. I really think that foreshadows Ruhn's destiny to end the royal Fae bloodline. Because he's like, I am royal. I'm going to inherit what my father has created.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of fearing the end of the royal bloodline, he's eventually going to be like, no, it's my responsibility to help end it.
Yeah.
And I really think Cormac would have supported him if Cormac had lived.
Hey, you know what? I really think you should kill your dad.
Yeah. Or be like, let me kill my dad while you kill your dad.
Let's like hold hands. Kill our dads. What?
We're so messed up.
This is, yeah.
Moving on. I alluded to it earlier. There's this physical indicator that the Dreadwolves, especially Mordoc, have lost all sense of humanity. And I think that's one reason why they are so feared.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, the Dreadwolf monitored the alley with golden, glowing eyes. Dark claws glinted at his fingertips, as if he lived in some state between human and wolf.
Mm-hmm.
And another quote, his teeth, slightly too long, gleamed in the dimness of the alley. It all reminds me of, I think in episode 4, we talked about Hunt remembering shifters who'd gone feral who would eat other shifters.
Yep.
That's what these Dreadwolves feel like, that they're there to destroy, doesn't matter what they're destroying in the process.
What makes a Dreadwolf a Dreadwolf? Is it like a Dreadwolf that's gone cannibal too far, and it changes something? Is it like a position? Because I always felt like the Dreadwolves was like the name of the group, right? Like it's the position that they're in. But sometimes they make it seem like they're this otherworldly, like demon type creepiness. And I'm just wondering, like, when humans eat humans, it's not good. I think correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's something like when humans eat human brains, there's something to the human brain that releases a chemical that actually hurts us more. Like other parts of the body, it doesn't hurt the thing. It's kind of like I know I'm right somewhere.
Isn't that the equivalent of mad cow disease? Mad cow disease is when cows eat beef accidentally.
Yeah, I think so. Because there was a tribe that would honor their ancestors, or the people who would die
by eating their brains,
by eating body parts, and the brain was part of it. And it was when someone was just kind of like talking to the tribe members and studying them, there was like this disease that kept reoccurring, and that's when they realized, oh, it's when you eat the brain.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there's something about the human brain that we extra can't eat because it starts to mess with you. I hate this conversation too. All that to say is that I wonder if there's something, because we've like SJM's made a note that there is cannibalistic tendencies. We've talked about it in the
Mm-hmm.
past, and we're going to have a story in a couple chapters
Yep.
that's about Mordoc, and it's like jarring, and it's more than it is cannibalism. Like, like
Yeah.
they,
Yeah.
because especially since like we know they're eating other fae sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if it's meant to mimic that a little bit.
Yeah. I could believe it.
Okay, I need to Google that. I want to confirm.
Yeah, we should Google Google that. I'm going to Google the definition between dreadwolves and wolf and if there's an actual difference.
Okay. Kuru is a rare and incurable fatal neurodegenerative disorder that is formerly common among the four people of Papua New Guinea, which is kind
Yeah,
of the
yeah, yeah,
tribe that I
yeah.
was mentioning. And it's caused by an infectious protein found in contaminated human brain cells.
Interesting.
Knowledge. I just knowledge the shit out of this
Knowledge.
place.
I do wonder if the dreadwolves are SJM's equivalent of a direwolf, and direwolves did exist in North America and they're now extinct. So it's
Mhm.
just like a different
Yeah.
version of wolves.
Yep. Yep. My little like segue. Bryce and Hunt are also dealing with canines.
I did appreciate the segue. I also really appreciate the symmetry that both
Mhm.
Bryce and Hunt and Ruhn and Ithan are dealing with predators. They're being confronted by predators.
Yep.
I think it's simple but effective storytelling on SJM's part
Yeah,
that, oh,
absolutely.
and it amps up the stakes, right? You have both your teams in different locations, but dealing with similar problems.
Mhm. It's true. It's true. And now a word from our sponsors.
One of the hardest things about trying to eat healthier and cooking at home is the fact that you have to buy a whole jar of spices for just a little bit of use, and it feels like a huge waste for me.
That's why HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit, because they pre-package everything and they have all the measurements ready to use and you don't have to waste anything. One of my personal favorite things about HelloFresh is the fact that you can try all of these amazing recipes. And these are recipes that I normally would never try because I don't have all the spices, I don't have all the ingredients, and I don't waste any food when I use my HelloFresh meal kit.
It is the perfect amount of food for me and my partner and have good leftovers once, and I don't feel like I'm wasting anything.
I am on vacation right now and I've ordered my HelloFresh box to be delivered when I arrive home because I don't want to have to deal with going to the grocery store. And I know what I'm going to cook is real food and it's going to be really good.
For free breakfast for life, go to hellofresh.com/free book talk. One free breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life just by going to hellofresh.com/free book talk. That's FREEBOOKTALK.
I love breakfast. It is my favorite meal of the day. I eat it at any time. And the fact that you get free breakfast for life.
It is insane. I will be taking that free breakfast.
So make sure you go to hellofresh.com/free book talk. That's hellofresh.com/FREEBOOKTALK.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
So I'm going to go into this quote. We are now in, with Hunt and Bryce. Quote, "The dog fur, sleek and iridescent enough that it almost resembled scales, flowed over bulky, bunched muscles. Claws like razor blades sliced into dry ground." It's very serpent-like. The fact that it's like scales, not even quite fur. And then they're able to split into two. And that is also so Greek mythology of SJM there.
Yeah, I actually really liked this take on what I'm going to guess is her version of Cerberus, the
Mm-hmm.
three-headed dog that guards the underworld, because the shepherd does eventually split into three as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, but it's SJMified, which I did appreciate.
Wait, the shepherd, no, I know the shepherd
The-
is in, but I was thinking the three-headed dog is not called the shepherd, the other
It's
one.
called Cerberus.
Cerberus, yeah. Yeah, no, the shepherd does split into three. I said really as if I was surprised. I've read the book too. I'm here. I don't know. The fact that it's called the shepherd was an interesting choice because I always think like more biblical in there. And I get it, like a shepherd dog shepherds the
Sheep.
animals and sheep
Yeah.
and stuff. And that's why it's like you kind of get biblical references because like we are all but sheep to God,
Yeah.
and stuff. So it was just kind of like an interesting choice to call that monster shepherd.
But it's also clever in that it mocks the
Mm-hmm.
biblical
Mm-hmm.
reference, right? In my
Yeah.
mind.
No, I
It's
agree.
very sacrilegious, which is appropriate when you're dealing with the underworld.
An argument that we made, like, in the first book, maybe I think it was just me, but, like, in the first episode was, like, if SJM was struggling, not SJM herself, but, like, the concept in general was struggling with religion in the first book, this is almost the death of religion in the second
Mhm.
book.
Mhm.
And I can see a thing like this where it's
Yeah.
mocking, these references to be, like, again, the death of religion.
Yeah.
I'm not speculating at all of what SJM spirituality is or anything like
Yeah.
that.
No, I think that's such a great point, that going back to that conversation, because I think we did talk a lot about it, both you and I, in our Earth and Blood season. And this is the perfect way. This is a very poetic way to be like, oh, when Bryce and Hunt find out that everything they were told and believed
Mhm.
about the bone quarter is a lie,
Mhm.
let me also use this biblical reference in the
Yeah.
most twisted way possible.
Yeah.
It's very poetic.
It is. Ooh, chills. Keep going.
Okay. Well, let's first off acknowledge the fact that Bryce still finds time to tell jokes about hot dogs, telling Hunt to fry him like a hot dog.
And Hunt's even like, "Don't say
Don't
it."
do it. It's just, to me, it demonstrates she's so confident in Hunt. She's
Mhm.
so much
Mhm.
faith in their ability to win, and that her belief that Hunt is like the most powerful being on the planet is unwavering,
Yeah.
which is gonna very quickly come into question. But until that,
Make
while
me a
Bryce
hot
is
dog real bad.
oh god, scared the shit out of me.
That was my Jennifer Coolidge
No,
impersonation.
I know. It's like, who's there?
Because it was so good.
Yeah, it was
"Jennifer,
good.
are you here?"
I didn't know where it was coming from. I was looking down. So while Bryce is running away from the shepherd, she acknowledges that just like we've learned the living are trapped by the Asteri, Bryce acknowledges that the dead are just as trapped, by the Underking and essentially the Asteri's design. Quote, Bryce sped past obelisks and stone mausoleums, resting places for the dead, or mere cages to keep them until they could become food. We always love a good food is power moment, except for the fact that now everyone and the dead are just chum in the Asteri chum bucket.
Yeah.
And it makes the bone quarter terrifying, except for the way I said it. Doesn't make it terrifying. It makes it SpongeBob-y.
I hate the word chum bucket.
Because it makes you think cum bucket?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for knowing me. Okay. We then meet Mordoc briefly. And we, in this dodgy alleyway, we find out that that's Danica's father, and that Danica is a bloodhound, and that's where her gifts came from, and so much plot. But I actually liked it, so it's fine.
I thought Mordoc's introduction was more terrifying than the bone quarter. He says, quote, I can smell you failing. I can smell the coffee on your breath. And just like Ruhn's in the shadows, he's not visible. So, that's terrifying. It's terrifying that just by smell, he can identify Ruhn as Fae.
Yeah.
And Jack, just imagine being fragrant enough that someone can smell you when you're invisible.
It's literally my worst fear. I can smell you've been outside for 10 minutes. I hate the smell of outside.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
I'm trying to think. It'd be like, I smelled you this morning. You ate your pizza leftovers from last night. Like, it's just like Ruhn's lucky he ate coffee, or he had coffee in the morning.
And that was it.
And that was it, because it could have been a lot more judgy.
Yeah.
While Ruhn waits for Cormac, he hides himself from Mordoc, right? So as Amy was saying, like, he's in the shadows. And Mordoc says, quote, this city has... Why is this The city has been coddled for far too long. Ruhn's temper unleashed its talons, but he willed it down. It's very reminiscent of something like Ruhn's dad would tell him, like that Ruhn has been coddled for too long. That Ruhn himself is, just this soft, spoiled kid. It's the same way that Mordoc is talking about the city, that the city has been coddled. It's soft. So, of course, Ruhn wants to protect and defend the city the same way that he wants to protect and defend himself.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. You did such a fabulous job.
Thank you.
I would like to say, every time I read anything Mordoc says, it feels very Austinian. It feels like he's old or older than Ruhn. Quote, hunting you all down like vermin shall be diverting. Ah, that annoys you. I can smell it. I shall remember that smell. I could see Darcy saying this to Wickham. Like, it feels very like...
But the way you read it just sounds dirty. I shall remember that smell. Oh my God. I also read your notes incorrectly, and I thought you said Australian. No. And I was like, what the fuck? You're going to anger our Australian audience.
No.
You're going to isolate them.
No, Austinian.
Yeah, that's fair. So now we're in chapter 31, and Ruhn and Ithan have bounced. They're at the bar because they were like, we need to pretend like we're somewhere else. And they're using alcohol to calm themselves down. Quote, Ruhn nursed his glass of whiskey, trying to calm his frayed nerves. And I'm not going to shame that. Like, they deserve this one.
You know what this is very, very similar to is the library scene in Wings and Ruin after Feyre and Nesta escape from the Ravens. Where do they go? Cassian takes them to the library, and they have a glass of bourbon.
Oh, yeah.
Or amber liquid.
Yeah.
To calm their nerves.
Could have been Coke.
True. I do have an amber liquid beside me, and it is a Coke.
Yeah.
But it had a very similar, violation feeling.
Yeah, calm yourself and stuff. They were really shaken up.
They were really shaken up. But imagine the absurdity of this moment, and I think we feel that through the narrative along with Ruhn. Quote, Ithan said nothing as the minutes wore on, his whiskey vanishing with them. No matter that it was barely 11 in the morning. Can you imagine facing death before noon? No. Unacceptable. I would like to live my life before I face death.
I think I can have a clear head around too. I think I've had a nice lunch. I've been able to walk it off a little bit. I'm not as full. Now I can survive.
Yeah, I need time to wake up. It's really I don't know that intriguing is the right word. It's hilarious to me that Ruhn chooses this moment to be like, "Hey, Ithan, move in with me." Like, I know they're on camera, I know that they're playing a bit, but at the same time, Ithan is also caught off guard, and I feel like even though Ruhn is trying to come up he's building their alibi at this moment,
Yeah.
it also normalizes what they just went through,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
Just being,
mhm,
like, pretending it didn't happen, just like it's part of everyday life.
mhm.
I recognize he's putting on that brave face, he's trying to not let the fear get the best of him, and injecting mundane helps achieve that, but it also negates the experience that they've just had. Like,
Yeah.
in not a positive like, in a
Well, it kinda reminds me of Bryce. Like, it's something that
mm,
Bryce would really do, right? Like, you
yeah,
talked about the hot dog, like,
yeah,
"Fry him like a hot dog," and, like, we find that that's her being comforted by Hunt and having, "Oh, he's here, so I get to be as powerful and mouth off as much as I want." But
mhm,
there's also something that negates the situation, how dangerous it is,
true.
and I can see how Ruhn is doing the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, great point.
Thank y'all. We now have Ruhn meeting Lydia in person for the first time. And now that we know what we know, it's, like, very exciting that we're like, "Oh, Ruhn and Lydia, they're together." Okay, yeah, like, we saw them in dream version, but this is, like, in-person version. And we get this quote. I haven't done it in a long time, so Ruhn found himself faced with the most beautiful female he'd ever seen. Her voice was lovely, fair, and cool, yet no light shone within her amber eyes. What other person thought, "Oh, this is the most beautiful person I've ever seen"? A Farah and a Reese. And it just sounds like exactly kind of that moment where it's like, okay, so if you see someone who you think is the most beautiful person, then
Then
that's
your
your mate.
mates.
Can someone please send this to Theo James?
Let him know.
Let him know we are mates. No, he has a wife. I respect it. No. Anyway, it also kinda like, it's also just interesting because he talks about her having amber eyes, and that's the same, with Bryce, and, like, there's been a fair amount of times where we hear about Bryce's amber eyes, and then
Mhm.
Lydia's amber eyes, and then the Autumn King's amber eyes, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Is this a
mhm.
throne of glass thing of, like, who's in power? Like, I don't know what it all means, but it feels I mean, it could mean nothing, or it could be, like, more of a metaphor situation of these are the ones who are actually in power, but you have a note here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have a coherent thought except that we don't know at this point, but we will know in the future Lydia's from a royal line, not just her mother who was a witch and who was the
Mhm,
witch queen, but also her father, Shifter, is descended from royalty, just like
mhm.
Bryce is. That's all I got.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Because there's a lot of characters with golden eyes, which
Yeah.
both Lydia and Bryce's eyes are interchangeably called amber or golden or whatever the
Mhm,
case is.
mhm.
So it is an interesting choice, especially when we know the crushing blue eye color of
Yeah.
Ruhn means something.
Yeah. Like, you can I feel like SJM can't set us up to have Rune's eye color to be a clue and then not have that be a clue
Yeah,
too.
I agree.
She did this to us. So in this whole sequence, we have a back and forth POV. We're going back and forth between Bryce and Hunt and Ruhn and Ithan, and it's pretty well done because you get a little snippet here, immediate change, a little snippet here, and I think it's meant to show that they're both in danger. They're both
Mhm.
in a high stakes situation. One is up against this death demon god thing, and the other one's playing cards. So you can really see just how intense it gets. I do really enjoy the transitions though,
Mhm.
because it goes from quote, I thought we'd play a round of cards, the Hind said, and then immediately goes into the other POV, quote, 2 against 1. Those odds were usually laughable for Hunt, but not when his opponents were demons from hell. And again, it's like you're talking about odds, you're talking about gambling, you're talking about these
Mhm.
things. So there's an immediate comparison. So,
Mhm.
if Hunt is against a demon from hell, well, then Ruhn must be against a demon from hell as well.
Right, which in his mind, in Ethan's mind, I mean, the harpy is a demon from hell,
Mhm.
but Lydia, Ethan is later gonna call her a fucking monster. Like,
Yeah.
And I have issue with that, and I will save it for when it happens. But in their minds, they really truly are in jeopardy. I mean,
Yes.
and yeah, she's killed a bunch of rebels, and they've now associated with rebels. So yes, they are in danger.
They are in danger.
And the flip-flopping between the two different points of view also makes the scene feel not, I don't know if fast-paced is the right word. It builds up anticipation, if nothing else, right? It creates a lot of tension.
I think it does create a fast-paced situation for what could be very slow scenes. I
Yeah.
mean, Bryce and
Yeah.
Hunt is clearly fast, but their scene would have ended quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you think about, if you were to put all of Hunt and Bryce's scenes, it would have been so both things are happening. You have the speed of what Bryce and Hunt are going through makes what Ruhn's going through faster.
Faster. Yeah.
The prolonged delay of how long what Ruhn is going through, the dragging out of the
Mhm.
situation, which
Mhm.
is a different type of torture, is then making the other scene not feel as short.
Right. It's slowing it down so that we
Yeah.
have more time to experience it. I completely
Mhm.
agree with you.
It's very good writing
It is. It's
choices.
excellent writing. What is not a great choice is joking about frying hot dogs because the fight with the shepherd's not going as well as Bryce thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
You can tell that Bryce is feeling she and Hunt are close to defeat, not just in this moment, but on a grander scale. Quote, somehow she'd become food. Was that what she'd traded away? She'd face a trip straight to the meat grinder of souls immediately when she died, which seemed likely to be soon. It's a dreary outlook, but it's another food is power moment, except they're the food, and she's not too happy about it. Not very
No.
exciting.
No. Bryce is fighting the demon, and she's separated from the sword. Quote, Bryce dropped, the rocky ground shredding her face as she slid beneath them until the star sword was cradled to her body. I think you can interpret this moment in two different ways when it comes to the shredding of her face, right? So face are considered to be masks, and it's kind of like, covering up the truth of who she is. So you can look at this as like her mask, her face needed to be shredded in order to get to the truth, which is Bryce needing to use a star sword.
Mhm.
Or you can look at it as Bryce using her face and looks as a weapon historically. And now that weapon is not in use. And so it has to be shredded so that Bryce can use the star sword.
Mhm.
Ultimately, even in the metaphors, it leads to Bryce needs to use the star sword.
Yeah, she can no longer deny the
Hmm.
need for her to use it.
Yeah, and then she cradles it to her body.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it put away or is it still sharp? Like, that doesn't seem safe.
I was just thinking about that. She could have cut off a boob. Would Hunt still like her
No,
then?
we know that. He likes voluptuous bodies. Bryce is hurt, and Hunt just loses it. That's the right reaction. Quote, primal rage poured from Hunt as he faced down the shepherd, the reapers. Hunt was the heart of the storm personified. The lightning around him turned blue, like the hottest part of a flame. Why is that? Because his mate is at risk. And now we finally have them saying, yep, you're my mate. And this is like
Mhm.
confirming this more that he has that primal rage. And I think like, words like primal, it kind of adds this like baser instinct, which is
Mhm.
implying that like they're them being mates is more than just a decision. It's inherent, it's innate in them. And then you have the fact that the blue light just kind of reminds me of Azrael, which I think to be kind of interesting since that's who she spends time with in the next book. And then I think it's more clues also additionally is that Hunt is going to lose it later on, even more
Mm.
so when it comes to
Mhm.
Bryce. Like this is him, like, she hurt her pretty face and he comes over and is like, Super Saiyan. And then later on, when she's like truly in danger, I mean, not that she's not in danger now, but like 10 times more, that's when he absolutely loses it and can only be saved with sex.
As many men require to be saved by sex. I mean, I think the men think they're saving the women with the sex. Yeah, I think this moment is so important to foreshadow what's going to happen between Bryce and Hunt later
Mhm.
when Hunt goes over the edge.
Mhm.
I would like to point out that if we take this moment and we juxtapose it against earlier in the chapter, Hunt couldn't use his lightning against the shepherd effectively previously. Quote,
Mhm.
His lightning remained around its neck, the shepherd's neck, but he could do nothing as it flexed and shattered the lightning sizzling into its flesh. He'd killed Sandriel with this lightning. A demon should be nothing. So, despite Bryce's faith in Hunt, Hunt was failing to kill this demon and save her.
Yeah.
And it is not until she's threatened, it is not until she is hurt, like truly hurt, that he's able to access the truest form of his power to be unstoppable. Which tells me she has to go into danger in order for Hunt to access his powers. Otherwise, he holds back, and he holds her back from danger so he doesn't have to access those powers. Therefore, what is Bryce learning through this but that
Yep. Put myself more in danger.
I have to put myself more in danger for Hunt to serve. Like,
damn. That's a good one.
Which I think is super important for Flame and Shadow.
Yeah.
Like, she needs him at the top of his game, and he is not able to be at the top of his game unless she's in danger.
That's really good.
Pew, pew, pew.
Good job, Amy. Big guns brought today. Killing it. Bryce recognizes Hunt's anger. Quote, she had seen this before, carved in stone in the lobby of the CCP, a fey male posed like an avenging god, hammer raised to the sky, a channel for his power. Fine. That's all the statue is meant to be, is to show this, is for this moment. There was nothing else left in that statue. That is all it is the fact that Bryce sees this, is inspired. She sees the statue was putting the power into, I think it was like a hammer or sword or something like that. And it was like that was the moment where she was like, whoa, like this is the connection. And it reminds me of a TikTok I saw about talking about Taylor Swift Easter eggs. And like everyone does these elaborate Easter eggs, but like if you look historically, her eggs have always been like pretty obvious. Like here's a big clue. And maybe that's just the same thing with SJ. I'm like, I'm counting too hard. I'm trying to figure out too many things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why so many people felt let down by Flame and Shadow, right?
Yeah.
You look at what we think are Easter eggs, and maybe they are, but it's like a surface level thing. It's not deep.
Yeah. You just shouldn't let us be up to our own devices for too long.
Yeah, that's the real answer.
We're in chapter 32, and Bryce has a wild theory that Hunt can power up the sword. So then she jumps in front of it, like shoving the sword right in there. And this is the baby step, because once she's like, whoa, the sword is powered up, like maybe I can be that next. And the sword isn't at full power yet, right? The sword needed powering up, right? In order for it to become full sword. It's the same way that Bryce needs to be powered up in order for her to become full power. Because like, even though she has the power, she needs to be charged up. We see that when it comes to Hunt, we see that with Azriel, right? And then it's the fact that like Bryce and her power and the sword are all reliant upon others, right? She has the power there, but she needs more on others to get that full amount and to be able to accomplish it. The reason why I think it works for her, and the reason why I like that there isn't any kind of question on that, is because Bryce has always been half human. So she's always needed more power. And I think if you were to have this same concept for Ruhn, Ithan, any full Vanir, it would have been too much. This idea that they're not fey or powerful enough.
Yeah.
So I just like that this is a thing that could be an issue, but it's not. And I think she's built for that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because if you think about Throne of Glass, Akatar, or any of the Vanir in Crescent City, this idea wouldn't work.
Yeah.
People's egos would be too bruised to accept that they are inadequate to keep a sword charged.
Yep.
And so it's only Bryce, and it's fitting that it's Bryce. I also think on some hand, it's SJM commentary on her previous writing. We've seen that happen with the age difference between Bryce and Hunt, where she's like, I know that I've done a lot of Chosen One stuff. Yeah. So I'm creating a character who relies on her partner and those around her to be successful.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate.
Guys, I figured it out. I'm no longer going to do Chosen 1. I'm going to do Chosen 2.
It's true.
I'm about to like rock your world, guys. There's going to be 2 chosen ones.
Oh, too funny. You know what, Jack? We're the chosen 2.
Oh my God. Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
So Bryce does the brilliant thing of jumping in front of Hunt's lightning, and Hunt is fucking terrified. Like, there was no communication. His lightning is intended to kill. It killed Sandriel. So, of course, it's going to kill a half human as well.
Yeah.
And I appreciate in this moment that he screams. And it is different from the chapter prior where he roars. The diction here is important. Scream indicates terror instead of roar, which is like, I'm a predator, I'm intimidating.
It's the difference between and ah.
Yeah. Good job.
Thank
Good
you.
job. What I love in this moment is that those screams are echoed by the shepherd when Bryce uses the charged up sword to kill one of the shepherd dogs. His fellow beasts then scream in response. This moment, I think, is important to demonstrate that now even demons of hell and hell-made beasts are terrified of Bryce and Hunt's combined power. And the Star Sword. And I think that's going to be important for how and why they're viewed as this dynamic duo and why there is fear associated with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and her dad is the one who called it the whole time.
Yep.
SJM is trying to confuse us, and it is working fantastically. Good for her. Hunt is amazed at what he can do, and Hunt thinks, quote, had the Prince of the Pit engineered the situation and manipulated them into coming to the Bone Quarter so that Hunt would be forced to realize what he could do with his own power?
I think that was really elevated by your hand gestures, and I feel really sorry for anyone who didn't get to witness that. It's that meme with all the, like, math.
Oh, I was thinking Emperor's New Groove. Crunk, I'm going to put the box in it.
Oh.
And another box and then smash it.
Yzma. Is it Yzma?
Yzma, yeah. It's like just kind of like, I was channeling her. But like there's just a lot. And again, half yes. I'm not even sure what the hell is happening here. Like who's in charge of everything. I've read this book. We've taken notes on this book. I can't remember anything because it's just so because again, half yes.
It's confusing and it continues to be confusing. It doesn't get clearer. Which begs the question, is it written well? Is it meant to be confusing?
Whoa.
Or is it just confusing?
Wow. Well, great questions. I don't know. I don't know. Or are we just really bad at paying attention? No, then it comes down to confusing. We're not our fault. I mean, and I don't mean that in a, like a pretentious way. And like, it's not our fault. It's more of like, that comes down to the writing choice. Is it too confusing?
Yeah.
And that is a fair statement. Like, we are active, think conscious readers. And if we can't keep up, then, like, it doesn't mean that it's bad, but it means it's confusing.
Yeah. And it is curious to me that the editor didn't have notes on that.
No.
Is it because Hunt and Bryce are supposed to get it so wrong? They're supposed to make you think about it and make you come to different conclusions, maybe? Like, I'm trying to find the thought chain, but I can't.
I feel like the line like that, though, like, had the Prince of the Pit engineer the situation, manipulate them into coming to the Bone Quarters, that Hunt would be forced to realize what they could do with their own power. Like, it just feels so
planted.
It just feels like you now have SJM like force feeding you this information. It is like, and I feel like she hasn't done this before of like, here's a thought. I'm going to need you to be on board with this. This is like,
I need you to have this thought right now.
Yeah. And it just like, it feels very neon lights in your face. And that's not something that she's done in a long time.
Right. Yeah. I agree. And I think that's why it sticks out to us so much, is it just feels very un-SJM to do.
Yeah.
We do get Thunderbird clues in this moment that I think are important to point out. Hunt uses the dead gate like a siphon, and Hunt thinks of Sophie in this moment. Like, oh, Sophie can channel power? Does that mean I can channel power?
Yeah.
which is a breadcrumb for his true lineage. But I think it's funny. It's a funny thought process for him to have in this moment of danger, but I guess he's desperate. So fine. I'll let him have it.
I wanted one other clue stuff to lead up to this moment rather than like, that's a gate full of energy. I shall do it too.
Yeah.
Hunt embraces and accepts what Bryce has done by jumping in here. Quote, Hunt's voice was a thunderclap as he said behind her, "Light it up, Bryce." The words bloomed in Bryce's heart. At the same moment, Hunt shot a bolt of power, the dead gate's power, into her. They know that they're like, they both know, right? Like, we're going to shoot her up with power. Like, they're on board with that. And he's accepted her and showed her that he's accepted her with using Danica's words. And, there's meaning in words. He's channeling Danica. He's finding that strength for Bryce. Also, it's funny because, like, she's literally lighting it up. And,
Yeah.
like, the entire time I was like, wait, did light it up really come from her lighting it up?
I think so. I think Danica says to Bryce, light it up, because Bryce saved their life by showing off.
Yeah, I'm
her
just
light.
now coming to this realization. I was like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, because it was a secret they shared, right?
Yeah.
I know. It gave me goosebumps again. But yeah, I did think about that too while I was writing notes.
Now, but not in like the first book. We didn't come to this conclusion then.
No, we did not come to this
Okay,
conclusion in
cool.
the
I just
first
want to
book.
make sure, like, past us was over our head.
Yeah. I love that in this moment, light it up are words of power, because they were words of mourning and sadness in Earth and Blood, but now it becomes a shared power between Hunt and Bryce, and it's something that Hunt takes over from Danica, right? It used to be just between Danica and Bryce. Now it's between Bryce and Hunt. And I think that it goes back to my Earth and Blood theory. Danica was the first love.
Yeah.
And Hunt is OTP with Bryce.
OTP.
I think this is a moment we should be calling Bryce's power into question, and we don't. But it does, to me, herald what is to come in Flame and Shadow. So let me reread part of the quote Jack just read. Quote, Hunt shot a bolt of his power, the dead gate's power, into her. It burned and roared and blinded, a writhing ball of energy that Bryce broke to her will and funneled into the Star Sword. So it's not like Hunt went pew pew and the Star Sword lit up. Hunt shot a bolt. The bolt is infused in Bryce, and she actively breaks the will of the dead gate to get the power into the Star Sword.
Yeah.
She's never done this before, right?
Yeah.
So that is immense control for someone who's never had control before.
And for the whole, like, one of the plot points of this book is her learning to get control of her power.
Right.
I wish that some of the earlier concepts, like, I don't know, we get so many clues that SJM drops about Hunt being able to charge her up. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many moments there of like, like, this is going to be a sign that, like, he is her power. But we don't get these little instances of her actually absorbing his power or being able to manipulate power. And I think, like, what you said, like, this is such an advanced form of power. Like, they went straight into this moment and, desperate times, desperate situations. But I think, like, it's hard because it's such a giant book. I really would have liked there to have been just little unconscious moments of Bryce
channeling.
Like one of those moments, like Bryce stood next to Hunt and could almost feel his power giving her strength.
Yeah, as if his power were giving her strength.
Yeah.
Or as if she channeled his lightning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that there was a missed opportunity because this, if we pay attention, now granted, there have been plenty of reads where I have not paid attention and I just breezed right past this.
We're not going to pretend like we spotted every single thing.
No. I feel like we've been looking for those moments where Bryce channels power, is growing in power, and it feels like only in moments of crisis where we see growth on her part, which again I think is typical for a fantasy book, is typical for a hero's journey. Nevertheless, SJM is so good at planting clues. Why didn't we get more clues?
Agreed. No, I agreed. there's aspects that might be considered rushed because we don't no, not even might. There are aspects that have to be rushed because this book doesn't live in their POV only.
Yeah.
We have much more limited time. This is a huge book, but much more limited time that we have in this book than we do with them in the first book. Because I think the
Yeah.
two books are very, like, they're not too big difference page count
No,
wise.
they're not.
And if you go to percentage, like Bryce had freaking what I call it 90, 85%. I mean, 80 of that previous book. And now I don't know what the percentage is, but it's significantly less. And
Yeah.
she's supposed to be doing a lot more.
Yeah, I completely agree. It does. It makes me almost resent how much Tharion and Ithan have screen time.
Yeah. And I think that's like what readers are picking up on whenever we get screen time with them, because we're missing out on these moments of Bryce learning
Mhm.
the little tiny moments of her. Because again, we can only assume there's like moments where her like unconsciously learning these things.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah. There's something funny about the visual though of Bryce running after the demon with the sword. It's almost like she's like, "What, you bitch, come back. I'm coming after you." And then Hunt comes like swooping in and picks her up and just like drops her. And I know it's
Mhm.
supposed to be a badass moment. I get it. But do you remember several episodes back I asked you what kind of shapeshifter you would be? And
Oh,
you said
yeah, and I was a
cheetah.
cheetah.
And I said I wanted to be an animal that was big enough to pick you up.
Yes. Yes, that is that moment.
I just imagine us.
Oh, too funny.
Yeah.
But I will say together, Bryce and Hunt become, quote, a meteor crashing,
Mm-hmm.
which is, decimation. That's pretty intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we would be a meteor crashing.
I would like to imagine we would put some animals to extinction.
Okay. Okay. The use of the imagery of a meteor crashing, though, was very space, which gives me Flame and Shadow vibes.
I mean, that's where the sword came from too.
Yep, that is such a good point. Good job. That's another breadcrumb. That's a more important breadcrumb.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy. Stick around for part 2, which airs on Thursday.
We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a future mini episode or on a Patreon exclusive episode.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon or Venmo. You can follow us on TikTok or Instagram at the handle booktalkforbooktalk.
Bye.
This is going to be a roof because we haven't recorded in weeks.
I know.
And the first time we're recording is going to be...
Yeah, we're out of practice.
We're not only out of practice, but we're on digital.
Oh, yeah, we're
recording.
Remote.
This is the first time we've ever recorded an analysis episode remote.
Yeah. So, I mean, Troy, knock on wood. Our internet connections seem good.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like we're lagging. So,
feel good.
For the most part, I feel confident. We'll see how long that lasts.
We can do whatever we want. This is our podcast. I'm just hyping myself up that I'm like, it's okay if we suck.
It is okay. Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.